Have you ever wondered who really controls the world?
Not presidents, not kings, not even the richest billionaires. The real power lies in something far more subtle and far more dangerous. It's not a government, it's not a country. It's an empire, one without borders, armies, or flags. It's an empire built on money itself. This is the story of the central banks. In the beginning, money was simple. Gold, silver, something you could touch, weigh, and trade.
It was honest, and if you had it, you had wealth.
If you didn't, you worked for it. But as civilization grew, people wanted something easier. Carrying gold coins wasn't convenient. So banks began to appear, promising to keep your gold safe in exchange for paper receipts. Those pieces of paper were the first promise of money.
And the world changed forever. Because promises can be broken.
Fast forward to the 17th century, wars were expensive. Kings and empires needed more gold than they had. But there was a problem. The gold supply was limited and armies didn't fight for promises. So in 1694, something revolutionary was born in the Bank of England. It wasn't just a place to store money. It was created to lend money to the government. In other words, to create money out of nothing. For the first time in history, a private institution could print paper money and lend it to the crown in exchange for interest. The government got the cash it needed and the bank got power. A quiet partnership was born between rulers and bankers, and this partnership would slowly grow into a global system. Centuries passed, revolutions came and went, empires rose and fell. But one thing remained: debt. Every government borrowed. Every war was financed, and behind every great event in history, there was always a central bank, creating money, lending it, and charging interest. It was the perfect business model. When nations won wars, banks got paid back with interest. When nations lost, the debt still remained. No matter who won, the bankers always profited. By the early 20th century, central banking had evolved into something global. In 1913, after years of secret meetings between politicians and financiers, the United States created the Federal Reserve. Its stated mission was to stabilize the economy and prevent crises. But from day one, it quietly took control over America's money supply. The government could now borrow endlessly. The Fed would simply create new money to buy government bonds. And the people, through inflation and taxes, would pay the price. A silent empire had taken form. During World War I and II, central banks funded both sides of the conflict. When the wars ended, they helped rebuild the destroyed nations, again through loans.
War, peace, prosperity, collapse didn't matter.
Because every event was an opportunity to create more debt, and therefore more control. By 1944, after World War II, the world gathered in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. There, a new financial order was established. The US dollar would become the world's reserve currency, backed by gold. Every other currency would be tied to the dollar. And who would oversee it all? The central banks. The empire had gone global. But in 1971, everything changed. President Richard Nixon ended the gold standard, meaning the dollar was no longer backed by gold. For the first time in history, money had no physical limit. It was just paper, or more accurately, numbers on a screen. Central banks could now create infinite money with a single keystroke. Debt exploded, and the modern financial system was born, an illusion of wealth powered by endless creation of credit. You see, central banks don't create value, they create debt, and that debt becomes money.
Every dollar, every euro, every yen in your wallet is someone else's liability.
Money isn't wealth, it's a claim on wealth that doesn't exist yet. That's the secret. Central banks control the price of money through something called interest rates. When they lower rates, people borrow more, spend more, and the economy grows temporarily. When they raise rates, people stop spending, businesses fail, and recessions begin. Boom bust. Boom bust. Every cycle carefully managed by the same hands that caused it. And you might think your government runs your country. But when debt is so massive that even a small increase in interest rates can cause national bankruptcy, who really decides what happens next? Central banks can freeze credit, manipulate inflation, or print trillions overnight. They can save corporations, crash markets, and decide who gets bailed out and who doesn't.
That's not democracy, that's control.
Or today, we live in a system where money is no longer backed by anything real. It's backed by trust. Trust in governments, trust in institutions, and trust that this complex system won't collapse. But what happens when that trust begins to fade? When inflation rises and currencies lose their power, when nations owe more than they can ever repay, we begin to see the cracks in the empire. In 2008, the global financial system nearly collapsed. Banks had created trillions in risky debt. When it all came crashing down, central banks stepped in, printing trillions more to save the economy. But who did they really save? The ordinary people who lost their homes, or the institutions that caused the crisis in the first place? The answer is obvious, and yet the world applauded. The system survived, but only because the illusion was kept alive. More debt, more money, more control. Today, that illusion continues. Central banks print money to fight crises that they themselves created. They lower rates to stimulate growth, but every time they do, they make the next crash even bigger. It's a cycle that can't go on forever.
And now a new era is coming, one even more controlled than before.
Digital currencies, cashless societies, programmable money. The central bank digital currency, or CBDC, is being quietly developed around the world. Governments say it will make transactions easier, safer, and faster. But think about it. If all money is digital and controlled by central banks, what happens to privacy? What happens when your money can be tracked, frozen, or erased with a single click? We are entering the age of total financial surveillance, where freedom is traded for convenience, where every purchase, every transfer, every penny can be monitored. And once that happens, control over money becomes control over people. The empire won't need to raise armies or pass new laws. They'll simply adjust the numbers. Reward obedience, punish dissent, all through the quiet power of the central bank. Alright, so who rules the world today? Not kings, not presidents, not parliaments. The real empire is hidden in plain sight, in the marble halls of central banks, in the flickering screens of trading floors, in the silent decisions made behind closed doors. An empire where nations are debtors and citizens are collateral. But remember this, every empire in history, no matter how powerful, eventually collapses. Not from outside invasion, but from within. From greed, from corruption, from the illusion of control. The empire of central banks is no different. Because when money loses meaning, when trust evaporates, and when the world finally sees the truth, the greatest illusion in human history may come to an end. And when that day comes, it won't be gold or paper or digital coins that matter most. It will be something far older, something they can't print, control, or destroy.
Real value, real freedom.
And the return of honest money.